Welcome back to Digimon, a celebration that can best be described as what started as an innocent joke. Digimon has not been kind to me. I didn't make it through one idea I had for this month without having to wildly overcorrect when things went wrong. Tried playing Digimon World, fell for some sort of mean digital prank, upgraded to redigitized, played the wrong version for about 20 hours. Played the right version, people point out the even righter version that I ignored for the sake of this month having any sense of cohesion to it. I've gotten over such small thoughts and I'm ready to take out my aggressions. Get over here, you little fuck! But before that, it's time to look at how Digimon was doing in the West. Previously, we left off just as Digimon was first touching down in America. The anime, toys, cards, and games were rolling out and finding their place in the market. The Digimon anime had begun airing in America in August of 1999 on Fox Kids, licensed for America by Hayao Saban. I had no idea Saban invented Digimon. Like every other Japanese import, the show was under heavy scrutiny from censors. But for some reason, Digimon managed to get away with so much more than even almost forgot Mixmasters was. They saw there was a devil in the first 10 episodes and decided to take it easy. What's the point? The popularity of the show would hold strong, following the inevitable change that came once the story of the first season, Digimon Adventure, wrapped up. The cast of Adventure was cycled out for Adventure 02, as now we were really into armor digivolution, and never would be again! It was around the same time we'd get the theatrical release of Digimon the Movie in October of 2000. A month after I was born, I feel like I deserve a credit. What was marketed as a movie was just a collection of completely unrelated OVAs from Japan, stitched together with some narration and plot changes to make it seem like it was done on purpose. You invite comparisons to Legends of the Crystal Coconut. I'm gonna make 'em! The movie took the original Adventure OVA, that acted as a prequel to the show, its first full-length OVA, Our War Game, and the first O2 OVA, Hurricane Touchdown, and cobbled a plot for them out of ska music and Angela Anaconda. There was a mandate from the executives behind the film that if there was a second of silence in the movie, everyone dies! It still made back 3 times its budget, so who looks stupid now? Digimon would then come under the wing of Disney, who purchased Saban in 2001, a few days after the movie's release. This would make Digimon a Disney property in the same way Power Rangers was at the time, and the shows would start airing on Disney channels like ABC and Jetix. The show, for what is relevant to us right now, would continue on for an additional 3 seasons, with the critically acclaimed Tamers, the critically next one, Frontiers, and the best one, Data Squad. This was the series where Digimon really grew up and got out of the playpen and wasn't for little kids and babies anymore. This has nothing to do with the fact it's what I watched at 6 a.m. before the bus got here. That's just a fun fact. Marcus had to make up for his lack of goggles by beating the shit out of all the Digimon he could get his hands on. This guy is as strong as Gallantmon and Omnimon, and he is whimpering because Marcus is throwing himself at him like a raccoon with nothing left to lose. The card game would continue on at the same time, before eventually becoming a part of the toy side when it was retooled into Detectors, a card and toy combination exclusive to the States. For the video games, we'd see the first 2 Digimon World games released by the year 2000, along with a video game adaptation of the card game in 1999. This would prove to be one of the most successful branches of the Digimon tree, as more and more games would eventually come out first, or even exclusively in America. Thanks to the success of the first 2 games, Digimon World 3 would release a month earlier in America than it would in Japan. We'd also start getting the odder Digimon games, like Digimon Racing on the GBA, or the Battle Spirit games ported from the WonderSwan. The one that caught on the most, though, was Digimon Rumble Arena, the fighting game spin-off, meant to capitalize on the new party fighter genre started by Smash 2 years earlier. Released in 2001, Rumble Arena would start the most supported sub-series of Digimon outside of the World and Story series, releasing 3 games across 13 years. Originally, I intended for this to just be about the most popular Rumble Arena game, with some lip service paid to the other two. But a few complications naturally popped up, and with a secret fourth game I found out about during research, this became a retrospective on all of them. Is Digimon gonna take it easy on me soon? Rumble Arena 1. Released on December 6th, 2001 in Japan, and the next year in February in America. Rumble Arena was Bandai's way of using Digimon to cash in on what had been a proven winner. Smash Bros. Had been on the market for a few years to that point, and was one of the highest-selling N64 games. Being an N64 game, though, meant its appeal was limited. And by applying that formula on the PlayStation, who had the N64 beat by miles in terms of install base, they could make big money. Very few had tried to copy Smash Bros. To that point, and with PlayStation not getting an official one for another 10 years, Bandai would be getting in while the getting was good. Digimon was a franchise built on the idea of making them fight each other, and after World 1 kept your hands firmly off the reins, it was a solid idea to pit Digimon against each other in a real fight. The game was developed by Hudson Soft and included characters from the first 3 anime series. But at the start, you'll only have a paltry 8 to start with only 2 being from O2. Oh, you know what? Never mind. Should have seen that coming. You unlock more by clearing arcade mode, so no better place to start than there. Out of my choices, I gotta go with Wormmon. I feel bad for him, and I think nobody else is gonna pick him. The game plays like you'd expect a Smash clone to play, when they only had the very first entry to draw inspiration from. The game is a mix of mechanics you'd expect, with weird quirks to try to make it stand out on its own. You get a basic attack string, jump, block, and 2 special move buttons. Instead of Smash, where you're able to hold a direction on your 1 special button and get a different move, Rumble Arena splits your 2 moves across 2 buttons. It takes a bit to adjust to, and nobody would argue this is better than how Smash does it, but it works well enough. The game might feel like it controls poorly when you play as Wormmon, but don't get confused. It really is that bad. The gameplay just feels sloppy. Movement is all or nothing. You either slink along the ground or burst forward in a way that's completely uncontrollable. When you're in the air or recovering, you zip from side to side, and it makes precise movement and landing really hard. Alright, the platform part of the platform fighter is down. That fighting better be good. Moves that launch you forward, like Wormmon's second special, are really hard to adjust after you launch them. You commit fully to the direction you go in with no way to stop it. You're gonna send yourself flying off the stage way more times than you'd expect. At the very least, falling off the stage isn't an immediate death. We're not playing sumo anymore, we're doing stamina battles this time. Combos require a lot of commitment too. Once you start attacking, you better be sure you're gonna hit the opponent since the ending lag is ridiculous. It's one of those types of games where you have to mash to try to get your attack out, but the opponent moves and you're left punching the demons in your head. The lag between special moves, meaning no spam, also means that you're left prone for a second after you whiff a move. It's a really unsatisfying feeling for there to be noticeable sections of a fight where you're completely defenseless. You're also heavy. Jumping in this game feels weird and wrong. You don't jump very high, and when you do jump up to a platform, you don't actually land on it. You just sort of phase into it, and then snap to solid ground. Controls aren't responsive enough for a game that requires quick reaction time to fight the opponents and the stage. Every stage has a gimmick to it, like lightning bolts, rolling balls, or fire pits that you have to watch out for, tying into a really weird mechanic where the game has type matchups. Either your Digimon is a fire, water, or nature Digimon. That means they'll take extra damage from stage hazards. Watch Wormmon drop into the lava and get his health shredded to pieces. On the positive side, as positive as this will be for the next ones, Rumble Arena 1 has the best stages in the series. They're not stunning, but they manage to cover the major themes you'd expect while still giving a Digimon flair to them all. Scattered around the stages are Digimon cards you can pick up for various effects. They're like items, but really only have 2 purposes. You have the ones that give you a temporary strong projectile, and then the ones that interact with the major mechanic of the game. So fighting with rookies makes sense, but nobody's dream is taking on the digital world with just Agumon. By fighting and getting hit in this game, you slowly build up your Digivolution meter. And once it gets filled, you tap the right shoulder button and can temporarily digivolve into your strongest form. This will update your character to one that feels a lot better to control. Jumps are higher, movement a bit snappier, attacks hit harder, and generally the game takes a big upswing whenever you can use one. Of course the opponent gets to use them too, despite my requests, and fighting one of them is like a horror game. Megas eclipse rookies so much that you can only just run when one is active and hope for the best. You can try to get him into a loop until the meter runs out, but I found that hit and run works best to survive until your own meter gets filled. Wormmon goes to show that life really isn't that fair, because everybody else is evolving to Megas or better. Wormmon, meanwhile, gets to hop all the way up to Champion to become Stingmon. You know Gatomon is always a champion, right? They're just small. Smurfin' little prick. Pulling off a Digivolution feels good, but man does the game try to make it not. The biggest strength and weakness of the game are the same thing, Digivolution. When you Digivolve, the game becomes a lot more fun, but how the game does it makes me loathe Digivolving. When you fill the bar, the game will freeze as the tamer pops up to call out the Digivolution, the game tells you a Digivolution is happening, and then you Digivolve. On the short end, this can take about 7 seconds to do, depending on what the tamer says beforehand, which is death when it comes to pacing. You might think 7 seconds isn't a big difference, but here's another fighting game moment that only takes 7 seconds. You're Digivolving twice, sometimes 3 times around. And with the opponent doing the same, half a minute's worth of fighting could be spent watching a cutscene that's the same every time you play it. The only difference is sometimes the tamers will say something different, but they're so bit-crushed it doesn't really matter what they're saying. The single-player mode this all takes place in is gonna have you going through some standard one-on-one fights, since the game doesn't support multi-tap and caps out at 1v1. Not a great look when your Smash Killer has 2 of the players sitting in the corner thumb wrestling until it's their turn. Waiting for you at the end of arcade mode is a fight against Reapermon, a Digimon made for the game specifically to act as its final boss. You could have picked somebody else. The Reapermon fight is really hard. The stage hazard on the stage is against your eyes. The afterimage effect on the characters and stage made me nauseous after having to try to keep track of all 8 Reapermons on the screen at once. Reapermon is also only a Mega. He doesn't have a rookie form he evolves into, he just gains meter to fuel his special attack. Every super form gets one, but Digimon without a Digivolution path get to make much better use of it since they don't have to contend with having a poor rookie form. His range is really far with that giant scythe on his arm, and getting close to him either means you get a flame wall or the best attack in the game. A 3-hit combo into gigantic pressure that hits about a dozen times if you let it go off. The best way to deal with him is spamming projectiles while he walks up to you, but unless you're in Mega, you're gonna be doing that for a long time. At least beating him nets you the privilege of playing as him, and then you launch yourself off the stage. Did I insult your mother, Digimon? What's your problem? With all the bad stuff that I've had to say about Rumble Arena, it might surprise you when I say I think the game is fine. I think it's a decent enough Smash clone that occasionally upgrades itself into a good one when you get to use the Megas, but it holds itself back with a lot of the stuff that I talked about. Even though I think the gameplay is a bit weird, it does all come together to make something that's at least playable. I didn't have a bad time going through my first arcade mode run-through, and I don't know, there's some charm to it. Multiple back-to-back arcade mode playthroughs, though, does start to expose more of the flaws, and I can't recommend you do that, not at all. The game does have some unlockables to go along with it, in the form of the Megas as selectable characters right off the bat. You get all the base roster Megas, Black War Greymon, Omnimon, Imperialdramon, Impmon, and Beelzemon. It turns into a fine roster after some hard work. It also has some cute unlock methods, like Omnimon only getting unlocked once you beat the arcade mode with Gabumon and Agumon. or Impmon only being unlocked once you beat arcade mode with all the Tamers Digimon. I also thought the music was pretty good across the board, though Japan has us beat pretty bad, with MIDI renditions of the openings to the show like Butterfly and Braveheart versus our all-original music. Let's show these punks what real Digimon music sounds like. Hit it! Hit it harder! 2 years later, in 2004, we'd see how Bandai would iterate on the game with a sequel, Digimon Rumble Arena 2. We're hopping up to the PS2 for this one, and also spreading the good word to the GameCube and Xbox, for some reason. Here's a Venn diagram of Xbox owners and Digimon fans. I tried pushing them closer, but they're like magnets. Rumble Arena 2 would pass on the development duties from Hudson Soft to Black Ship Games, a subsidiary of Amaze Entertainment made to work on projects related to the Asian market headed by Scott Samura. They started with Digimon Rumble Arena 2, and like all life on Earth, ended with Digimon Rumble Arena 2. This meant that Digimon Rumble Arena 2 would be the first Digimon game developed outside of Japan, even though it released there first under the name Battle Chronicles. Off the bat, the game seems to have less options than the original, losing out on a mode dedicated to the in-between round minigames from the original, but those have been replaced with additional fight modes in the multiplayer mode. Other than that, you have the practice mode and single player, an arcade mode that does away with a linear style in favor of a branching map. After every fight, you can choose to go up or down on the map towards easier and harder fights, adding on extra fighters in more complex arenas, and I think increasing the frequency of hidden game modes. At least that's how it felt, because I got one every single fight on my first playthrough with Agumon. Getting into the game, and the leap forward is impossible to ignore. While the controls still have a bit of stickiness to them that makes it a hair less responsive than it needs to be, the rest is a massive improvement. Movement is fast and lets you close gaps without having to sign a lease on your forward dash. Jumping is higher and makes you feel a lot more confident about the platforms you land on. Combos are less set in stone, and you can actually stop mid-combo to try different moves, like a sweep or a special, and Oh, the specials are so much better now. Now instead of 2 tied to 2 buttons, you got 3 tied to 1. You have a neutral special, up special, and down special, most often taking the form of a projectile, uppercut, and dash attack respectively. I can't say though it doesn't feel weird not having a dedicated forward special and having it throw out the neutral special too. Unlearning that after years of having it the other way is not easy. If nothing else, Rumble Arena 2 makes for such a better actual play experience compared to the original. Like I said before, the game also adds on a bunch of new modes for fights, ranging from a King of the Mountain style mode where you have to stay in a certain spot on the map to gain points, Digi-Egg Keep Away where you have to hold on to the egg long enough to get your points up, be the first to Digivolve 3 times, catch Coolamon for longer than the game mode stays fun. There's a lot of stuff here. You'll also be fighting a lot more during those fights. With more consoles adopting 4 controller ports, they upgraded the fights from 1-on-1 to up to 4 players. You'll also have the chance to get your run invaded by 3 of the unlockable Digimon: Black Agumon, Black Gabumon, and Black Gilamon. Digimon worked the marks by making recolors a part of its identity. Here's 2 different Digimon, and here's what they digivolve into, licensed to print money! It's not like the roster is getting much more interesting past those 3, though. The variety of Digimon has been cut back by a lot compared to the first game. That one tried to balance it out between the 3 original series, but here, they threw out all the Tamers and Do2 reps in favor of the rest of the original Digidestined. Oh yeah, let's all play as Joe! The real interest in the roster comes from when you clear a route in arcade mode and unlock the boss as a playable character. You're getting at least 4 boss caliber characters in Omnimon, Malomyotismon, and Duskmon, as well as the joke boss in the form of Nemon if you chicken out for the easiest route. I think all the bosses are jokes though, since the game only allows you to recover after hitting solid ground. You can beat any boss by grabbing them, throwing them over the edge, and repeating.
Please stop, this is embarrassing.
The last boss, though, I saved, because despite being the second easiest, I think he's the most busted. Diaboromon. Diaboromon is the villain of our war game, and isn't right in the head. He's a virus Digimon based on the Y2K bug that wants to destroy the world. Not the digital one, the real one. He does this by stealing the launch codes and firing missiles all over the world to nuke humanity back to the Stone Ages. Diaboromon is a terrorist, and that describes him in the movie and the game. This is his neutral B. His uppercut combos forever, and his down special eats health like it's nothing. His ultimate move even digivolves all the other players back down to Rookie to make them easier to bully. If you want to break up with your friend group, invite them over to play Rumble Arena and then pick Diaboromon. You're not getting invited to anything afterwards. Speaking of Digivolutions, the game handles them so much better than the last game did. Now Digivolutions happen in the middle of combat. There's no cutscene interrupting it. You also get an in-between form from Rookie to Mega. Usually a champion form, but it really just depends on what's the most popular. With the standardized specials across all the forms, it means you won't have to learn on the fly and try to remember what each form does. You get a much easier to grasp moveset that transfers across the different forms. There is one aspect where I feel the game completely fails though, feeling like a Digimon game. The Digimon help with that, sells the idea a little better, but aside from that, I had to remind myself this was a Digimon game. The biggest culprits are the stages. In the last game, there was an attempt to make the stages feel like they fit into the idea of what the digital world looked like. There was a mix of the natural and man-made that isn't just not there in the sequel, but is replaced with stages that feel like they had no thought put into them. Every stage feels like a generic platform fighter stage with no charm or Digimon flavor. There's a Wild West level, a pier level, a factory level. These could fit into any other game. What about them is meant to be Digimon? The stages also have some of the worst gimmicks you'll ever see. The factory level has a machine that locks your Digimon into a can for about 15 seconds before you're allowed to bust out. Until then, you get wailed on. The items as well feel like they could have been in any game. A hot pepper to make you deal contact damage, a metal glove to make you invincible, turning into a piñata, none of this works in a game about Digimon. With the developers being a subsidiary of a budget game company like Amaze, it feels like they just had a game cooking for a while that they decided to flip into a Digimon game when they got the contract. The only exception to this is Twisted Toyland, the moving stage. Not only does it actually have a parallel to a real Digimon location, but it features stage elements like balloons that look like Digimon. It's all the stranger then that one stage actually looks like the real deal, while the others feel like placeholders. Overall, I enjoyed Rumble Arena 2 a lot more than the first, but it's still a rung below the real standout platform fighters. There's a reason you don't see this game still having a community today. It's a standout, but only compared to other weaker games. After this, the Rumble Arena series would go into hiatus along with, well, Digimon, but we'll talk about that next time. What you need to know is that Digimon's presence in America was at its nadir. Nobody gave a fuck about Shoutmon, and they were gonna try to fix that. Digimon All-Star Rumble is a rarity among rarities. A Digimon fighting game made exclusively for the West. The game wasn't just released first in America, it never released in Japan at all. Development was handed back there though, as this time the game was headed up by Prope, Yuji Naka's company. The only man for the job. The reason for the game's creation is, allegedly, that Bandai Namco wanted to test and see if Digimon still had a fandom in America. And considering the response, this is probably the reason fans had to create a petition to get Cyber Sleuth brought to America. All-Star Rumble is kind of a layup. Nobody remembers this game, fewer liked it, and I knew that well coming in. This game really stinks. You get the same modes that all the other games had, with a single-player mode, multiplayer, and training mode. Conspicuous by its absence is any form of online play. I only say that because the banner on the back of the game case advertised Xbox Live more than some of the Digimon. Oh, these? These were 2 extra copies I bought off eBay, because every time I buy a game off eBay, it doesn't work. I hedged my bets and bought 3, including one from my new home away from home, the Schaumburg, Illinois Public Library. And then the first one I tried, it worked! Am I just digi-destined to get scammed all the time? I've never been so upset a product I bought worked! The main topic here is the story mode, because of all the games in the world it could have drawn inspiration from, they chose Digimon World 4. The most beloved Digimon World game. The most beloved Digimon game. The most beloved game! In between one-on-one fights, you'll be running through stages with beat-em-up encounters, waves of Shell Numemon and Gobblemon, with occasional tougher enemies like Apemon and Skull Mammothmon. For some reason, the developers thought it'd be smart to have health carryover from the in-between fights to the actual one-on-one fights. So better keep from taking too much damage, or you'll forfeit a stock by default. Once you get into an actual fight, you'll find out they've mixed up the formula and kept it the same at the same time. Instead of a 2D fighter, All-Star Rumble goes for a 3D fighter in the vein of Shrek Super Slam. I'd say Power Stone, but that'd be rude to Power Stone. What stays the same is all the bad parts from the first Rumble Arena. Combos are limp and have no variety between them, despite that being a feature in the game. Jumping sucks, the stages are basic, both in theme and design, the roster is the smallest it's ever been, especially the starting one with only 4 characters unlocked, and one of them is Shoutmon, who is so much better than the other ones that unlocking more feels like a step down. The story isn't even worth finishing because the last level has you fighting through every enemy in the game, including the bosses, with no health in between sections. This game is spiritually Nickelodeon MLB. Just try and figure out what that means! I'm gonna do something I've never done before and keep it brief. The game's bad, avoid it. Oh, and this is how the Rumble Arena series ends too. Good! I was kinda scared, really. This would have been such a damp squib of an ending to go out on that there was no way I was going to cover All-Star Rumble as anything more than a footnote when talking about Rumble Arena 2. The same with Rumble Arena 1. Rumble Arena 2 is just the most popular one, so that's the one I wanted to talk about. Except, when I was looking for info on the Rumble Arena games, I stumbled across a 4th one that was so much better than the other 3 that I had to talk about it. But because of what it is, I couldn't not talk about the other ones first, to properly set the scene. That's because the best Rumble Arena game is a fan game. Draco74 is the lead developer behind Project Digimon, a Rumble Arena 1 remake that sought to completely change the game. On top of updating the character models and stages, the biggest addition to Project Digimon is the roster. 24 Digimon became 19, became 12, and now with the fan remake, you have a roster of 83 Digimon to play with. Except that number is far, far too low to actually encompass how many Digimon are in this game. Each one of the Digimon you can play as can Digivolve as well. So if you want to count the characters that the base roster can evolve into, you're going from 83 all the way to 51 characters. Oh, that's lower, you say? Well, I meant 51 in this row. That's right, in just this one row, there are 51 unique forms, in the form of the Digivolution you can pick from. That's right, new to the fan game is the ability to pick between different Digivolutions at the start of a match to decide which one you want to evolve into. Agumon lets you pick between War Greymon X Antibody, and Blitz Greymon. Ogremon gives you the choice between Titamon, Boltmon, and Devitamamon. And Wormmon can pick between Bancho Stingmon, Gran Kuwagamon, or Grandis Kuwagamon. Almost every character who can Digivolve gets a variety of options on what they can become, and it gives the game a roster that breaches the triple digits. And if you think the different Digivolutions are just different costumes put on top of the same moveset, no. For Agumon, War Greymon, X Antibody, and Blitz Greymon all play completely differently. That's not even all of them, as some Megas have exclusive transformations only if you pick them as your starting character. like Diaboromon evolving into Armagamon until his meter runs out, temporarily turning you into a boss fight. Any Digimon with even a speck of notoriety is playable in the game. You've got representatives from every major faction in the Digimon series. Anime characters, Demon Lords, Olympus 12, standout rookies, and the Megas whose models we had on hand. You can be any flavor of racist cop you want to be with the Royal Knights. Just making distinctions here, these two are not racist. These four can't be racist because they're protag final forms, but Magnamon is close. Sleepmon has a lot of learning to do, but he's trying. These two are very racist, and these three believe in criminal skull shapes. Alphamon isn't in the discussion, cause he's the one they're racist against, but he's so much stronger than the other 12 they can't do a damn thing about it. Duftmon's gonna get froggy one day, and Alphamon will tear him in half like a phone book. Once you pick your favorite out of the lineup, you can tackle the arcade mode, which is back to a linear fight-by-fight format, except now you can choose your ladder based on certain animes, movies, and even games. You start out with only access to the original Rumble Arena ladder, fighting Digimon who were in the original game before fighting Reapermon. After that is an Our War Game themed ladder where you fight Diaboromon, and after that is the Adventure ladder where you lose to Apocalypmon. The game has 10 boss tier characters and they're all an absolute pain to fight. The only way to make it easier is to use a boss character yourself, but it kinda defeats the purpose at that point. Getting into the actual gameplay, and it's reverted a lot of changes that have been made since Rumble Arena 1, while still keeping what worked and improving what they kept. There's finally a full set of special moves for every direction. Neutral, up, side, and down. Since the game is a team of around 8 people working in Unity, I'm willing to cut it some slack on the physics since they're still not up to snuff with what the major teams can put out. There isn't a lot of momentum to movement or aerial combat, which does take an adjusting period. The whole game still feels like it's missing that final pass at the gameplay that would make it really good. That said, the base the team is working with now is great fun. Combat has the simplicity of Rumble Arena 1, with the improvements found in 2. You aren't locked into auto combos, and now you're able to string together combos even easier, with the added challenge of your specials having cooldowns. You can't just spam moves over and over again, and instead of the SP mechanic of All-Star, which limited what you could do without comboing normally, now all you have to do is wait for your abilities to return. It's a little extra strategy that incentivizes you to use all your moves and get creative, as well as stopping you from just using one move over and over again. Digivolution also feels big. When you digivolve, you become the boogeyman. Your moves get more destructive and your power shoots way up, which makes when both Digimon are transformed and you have a battle of megas feel like a whole new game. I had the most fun with fights in this game compared to any other in the series. It might not be perfect, but it's the best Digimon fighting game of them all. The edge it has over Rumble Arena 2 specifically is that it feels like a love letter to everything Digimon. The roster is one thing, but the stages take inspiration from locations in the anime, locations in the movie, like the digital world in Our War Game, or the destroyed city in Revenge of Diaboromon, that's right, he gets revenge, as well as other Rumble Arena games, specifically number 1. The game also features music from across the games and anime. Covers of the themes from the show, and songs dropped straight in from games like Cyber Sleuth and Redigitized. Anybody who claims to be a fan of Digimon owes it to themselves to download the game for free and play it. And then take my personal challenge. Go to the options and enter the unlock code to get everything at the start of the game. Then try to beat Millenniummon once. Millenniummon already has every move in the game, it seems, but Digivolving brings him up to Zed Millenniummon. In story, this is one of, if not the strongest Digimon in existence. You'd never know that because he's the world's biggest aura farming jobber who has never actually won a fight. The team for the game decided to give him his first impressive outing and make him a boss so difficult even other bosses struggle to beat him. I was resolved, though, to make like everybody who's ever fought Zed Millenniummon and beat Zed Millenniummon. The most damage he's ever done is to Tamer's pacing. The only Digimon I trusted to get the job done was one of the Digimon that made up Zed Millenniummon. Machine Dramon. I couldn't have him in Redigitized, I'm using him here. I picked him because of the first 5 words of his entry in the reference book. The digital world's strongest Digimon. Are the Digimon allowed to write their own entries? Did his mom submit this? You know he digivolves again after this, right? No? It's him? Okay, cool. Anyway, I did it. Now prove how tough you all are and do it yourselves. Until then, I'm allowed to ignore next order all I want.